Welcome back guys, hope you're doing great. Well, in this video I'm going to show you how to understand the Redux with Next.js. So basically we're going to create a to-do list, a simple application where we can understand the best practices of Redux along with the Next.js. Alright, so let me show you what exactly that we're going to build over here. So here we do have a nice UI. So let me say I'm just going to add a new to-do list. Let's say need more content, something like that. So once I hit this, we can able to see that it's added to the our store and it's displaying immediately over here. So if you click this option over here, you can able to see and you can able to monitor the Redux completely, where you can able to see what is the action it's been triggered and everything. So I'm going to show you all the best practices along with the Next.js to work with your Redux store. All right, so let's say if I want to add one more item, so something else. So if I hit this, that will be added to the top of our list. So if I want to reduce, if I want to delete this, so all I have to do is to click that delete. That item will be successfully removed from your to-do list. So basically we are performing every single action directly to our Redux store, right? You can able to see here now that store state, it's having only one element inside in it. All right, so I hope you guys are so excited about this video. So without wasting your time, let's jump into the video. All right, so first, let's create a new project folder over here. So I'm just creating a new project folder like YouTube Redux something, Redux. So let us open this project folder in the Visual Studio Code with new terminal, and let's open it in the Visual Studio Code. Full space dot. Here we go. So let me make it bigger. Fine. So now let's jump into your browser and I'm search for Next.js. All right, so here that will gives you the very first link of their official website. So click that and click the get started option, and in the left side menu you can able to find out this installation part. Click the installation part and you can see this command over here, npx create next app at latest. Okay. So all I'm going to do is to copy this command, and let's get back here, open up your terminal and paste it. In this case we want to deploy all our Next.js project in this current folder which we are right now. So I'm just going to say /. So this will download the latest version of the Next.js and it install it in the current folder where we are. So hit the enter and that will ask you to install this create next app for the very first time. So please press S and hit enter. In this case I'm not going to use the TypeScript, I need the ESLint and I need the Tailwind CSS, and I'm not going to use the source as the main folder, and I need the app router, and of course I don't need to import any other alias. If you are not sure about what you are doing, please make sure that you are using no, because for the import alias, because by default it's using as the @ symbol as the import alias. If you know what you're doing, then you can go ahead and choose the yes, otherwise keep it as it is, right? So this will download all the necessary packages that we need for the Next.js. So please wait until it's successfully downloaded. All right, in this case my file is already successfully downloaded. So what I can do is let's start this React Next.js application. So let's say yarn dev. You can say npm run dev, or you can simply say yarn dev. That's up to you. It will work smoothly as it's supposed to be. So here you can say this is the localhost link. So let me go back here and let me search for localhost 3000. So that should load your web app. Here we go. So now we have our web app over here. So let me bring it to the small screen because I don't need it this in the very big screen. All right, fine. So next what we need to do is we have to bring that design exactly what we wish to do. So all we have to do is to jump into the page.jsx. Basically you can see we don't have the source folder over here. You will have only the app folder because we asked for it, and inside the app folder you can find the layout.js. This is the main layout file where our HTML and body tag and all the child components is being rendered over here. That's a root layout file. All right, over here I can modify this metadata where you can modify the title and the description about your web page. In this case this is going to be to-do list, something like that. and it's generated by create next app, understanding Redux. All right, so save these changes. Now you can see the title and the metadata information all changed successfully over there, right? So then what we need to do is, if you go to the page.jsx, this is the main content what you're seeing right now over here. It's all coming from this particular file. All right, so I'm just going to say Control A, delete it, and RAFCE, React Arrow Functional Component. By default it says page, and I'm just going to change everything into home. Save these changes. All right, so now what we need to do is, all we have to do is to start design the UI. So basically by default we already configured the Tailwind CSS, so we don't have to worry about it. By default you can see it's loading the styles from this global.css. If you don't want this dark background and everything, you can alter these variables and everything. In this case I'm just going to leave it as it is, and let's jump into the video. So here in the page.jsx, so all we have to do is to make sure this division is class name. It's going to be width screen. Of course it's going to take the complete width screen and height screen and flex everything, and everything it should be in the column direction, item center, and everything should be in the center, and in the padding left and right of the screen it's going to be, and then each object should have at least some gap in between it. That's the reason gap at 6. All right, so enter. So according to our design, we have two different components. So first let's bring the title over here. So let's say to do list. All right, so I need to bring this rocket icon. Let's bring it over there. Cool. So class name is going to be, size is going to be text 3XL. Of course we need to make it a little bit bigger, and font I'm just going to say semi bold, and the text gray color 100. So now you should be able to see this to-do list over there. So then what I need to do is I need to bring the division where I can display that the component section. Of course width, initially for the small screen it's going to be width full, but from the medium device on, the width should be take the 50% of the screen width, whatever it is. So rounded LG, and px is going to be 6, py it's going to be 8, and I need the border. So border, and the border color it's going to be zinc 800. Save the changes. Now you should be able to see the border over there. All right, so then what we need to do inside here, we need to bring two different lists. We need to bring one add to list input icon, and another one is list out all the to-do lists. We need to list out all the to-do list, all the elements inside the to-do list. So here for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a two component, add to list component, and of course one more to do list component. So let's create it in the root directory. You need to create it in the root directory in the over here. The reason is because if you go to the Tailwind CSS, that's the where we are, our components it's been mounted, right? Our components, that's the place this Tailwind CSS it's been looking for. All right, if you want to customize, you can customize in the Tailwind CSS also. In this case, I'm going to create the components folder over here. So let me copy the name for the better avoiding unwanted mistakes. Paste it, and inside this components folder I'm going to create a new file, index.js, to export all the components which comes under this components folder. And what are the components that we need to create? Add to list. So let me create a new file, add to list.jsx RAFCE, for the time we close it, and to do list JSX RAFCE, close this. And in index.js we have to export it. So export default as from /add to list, copy and paste it, and this is supposed to be to do list. All you have to do is to copy the same name and paste it over here, and copy this name and paste it over here. So save these changes. Now it's been exported. Now we have to import it. So if you check it out, you can see it's been successfully imported under the components folder. Usually we used to say /components, but in this case it's using an import alias at symbol. All right, that's the default alias symbol which we haven't reconfigured it, right? So now if you save these changes, you are supposed to see these two components, it's loaded successfully. So let's jump into the add to list part so that we can bring the UI instantly. So click the add to list. So here in this case, what exactly I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste the code for the CSS styles and everything to avoid the timing, because this is not the main concept about this video, right? So you can able to copy the same code from the description below. I already attached the link in the description, so please go ahead and copy and paste that code and you can able to follow the main concept from there. So save the changes. Now inside here we need to bring three different elements. One is the icon and add icon, another one is the input element, right? So for icon, I'm just going to bring this BS card checklist, and basically that is being coming from your this import statement. All right, so then I'm going to bring an input box which is going to be input, and that is going to have a class name like this, and placeholder it's going to be add to your list something. Then I need to create a state so that we need to get the value of these each and every elements. So use state snippet. So I'm just going to keep it as a value. Initially it's going to be an empty string, and for this value I'm supplying the value state which we created. On change, I need to get every single changes happened in this target. So e.target.value. So save these changes. Now you should able to see a mistake over here. The reason of this mistake, it's happening because we need to make sure how this component is going to react, whether it is going to react in a client side or it's going to react on server side. So basically Next.js will work both on server side rendering and the client side rendering. So we need to make sure which component is going to be a server side and client side. In this case, I'm going to make sure this it's going to render as the client side just by adding this term called use client. So save these changes. Now you will not get that error, and we are still getting this error because we haven't added the necessary packages for using the icons. So all we have to do is to go and create a new terminal and add a new package called yarn add react icons space and react hyphen redux space redux, all these informations. So these are the three necessary packages that we need to add for this program. Enter. So that will download the necessary files and everything. So let's wait until it's successfully downloaded. All right, so it's successfully downloaded, and now you can see that it's not showing that error, and you can able to see the icons and as well as the input everything. So next what we need to do is, so I'm gonna add the framer motion as well. So yarn add framer motion. So basically this is for just small animations what we did in our project for that purpose. All right, so now we have that animation. So let's import that animation package first, import motion. So then what I need to do is, so I'm going to add copy and paste that over here. All right, so motion div while tap, and we are adding this plus icon. Okay, so we need a function for this, so let's go ahead and call const handle click. It's going to be an arrow function. Okay, that's it. Now we don't get any error. All right, so now you can able to see this option over here. All right, so now it's working perfectly as it's supposed to be. Then what we need to do is, let's jump into the to-do list, the place where we can render the complete list elements over here. So this is the place where we are going to bring that complete list which is inside that array. So save these changes. So now you should able to see that background UI it's completely changed. So then what I'm going to do is, this inside this part over here, I'm gonna create a sub component, an internal component. This is going to be basically a list card, right? So for this list card, I need to create a key. For the key, for the time being, I'm just going to keep it as 1. Then I'm going to create an index field. Okay, so let's create it, then we can write it over here. Better that. So const list card is the component, and let's say return, let's create a div, and it's going to take a components like index, and it's going to take the item, right? These are the things, and inside here only I'm going to display the item, and for this I'm going to create a key. It's going to be an item, index, and for this to division, let's wrap it as a motion dot div. Better. So what we need to do is we need to bring the motion package over here. All right, so let's go ahead and import that package. So import motion. So we imported it successfully. So then what we need to do is, all we have to do is to load it. All right, so now if you go here and let's bring that list card, and let's give the key for this component. Key is going to be, for the time being, let's keep it as 1, and the index value, of course, it's going to be 1, and the item, we should supply the text for that. So I'm just going to say sample new item or something. Save these changes. Now you should be able to see the same error. Of course, this is also, it's getting the same error because we need to add this as the use client at the top of it. Save the changes. Now you should know, you will not get that error again. All right, so now it's rectified and you can able to see the sample new item, right? So let's make some changes for the styling purpose of it. So I'm just going to add the class name. Okay, so now it looks like this, and I need to bring the delete icon over there. So for that, inside this item, this need to be rendered inside the paragraph, make it, and I need to bring one more motion.div, enter, and I'm just going to copy and paste that icon. Yes, now we need to import this guy over there. So add this import statement over here. Fine. So then what we need to do is save these changes. Now you should be able to see the delete button over there, delete button. And then here all I have to say, while tap, I'm just going to say reduce the scaling for 0.9%. So you will get this wobble effect over there, something like that. Then I need to add some styles for this. So basically it's need to have a cursor pointer. So whenever I'm moving it, it should see the cursor pointer over there. And for the paragraph tag, of course, I'm going to change some styles also. So for this paragraph, paste the styles. Now it should looks like this. So now we have this. So what we need to do is, so we need to add some animation stuff, right? So for this key, I'm going to supply the index. We already supplied it. Then what we need to do is, there is an initial state, right? Initially the opacity level of this particular component, it's going to be 0, and y in the y axis, it's going to be 10 pixels from top to bottom. It's going to be 10 pixels shifted up. So if you save this, okay, we don't see anything right now over here. All I have to do is to copy and paste it 3 more times, and I'm just going to say animate, and I'm going to say it as exit. While it's animating, it's going to be opacity level, it's going to be 0, and it's going to be 0. While exiting, the opacity is going to be 0, the y-axis is going to be 10. And for transition, so we need to make it as a stagger effect. So basically stagger effect in the sense like every component should load a little bit delay, so that the loading of the component, it's little bit delay when compared to the previous one. So for that, I'm adding the transition. So transition, I'm just going to say delay this component. So I'm going to use the index and multiply it with 0.1. If you want to delay it much more, increase the 0.1 milliseconds into something else. So I'm just going to say duration 0.5. Save these changes. All right, so now let me copy this and paste it few more time. Over here and here, I need to update the key let me save these changes, and now you can see that it's having that nice stagger effect. So every time whenever refreshing, you can see it's having this nice stagger effect, right? So if you wish to make some adjustments, feel free, and you can do the adjustments and everything. Now here's the important part. Okay, this is the most important part where we are going to configure the store and everything. All right, so to get these stores, now what we need to do is, we already added the packages and everything. So in the root folder, I'm going to create a new folder called context. Inside the context, all we have to do is to jump into the new folder called actions and create a new folder called reduces. And inside the context folder, create a new file called store.js. So basically, you need to understand the Redux. It's kind of like a data layer which serves your data throughout all your child components, right? So we need to wrap the main component. We need to wrap our main component. That means our root component should be wrapped inside our data provider, so that the provider can provide the data throughout all our child. So I can able to access the store at any point, even at the end of our child node, right? So if you want to perform something in your Redux tool, you need to perform two important things. One is the action. So basically, action which helps the Redux store to figure it out what action is being triggered by the client. And you need to keep it in mind, the Redux store can perform only on the client side, right? So it should be wrapped on the client component, because when you're working with the Next.js, React.js, we don't need to worry about it because it's only on client-side rendering. But when you're working with Next.js, we need to worry about it because Next.js supports the server-side rendering and along with the client-side rendering also, right? So the Redux store can work only on the client side to manipulate the DOM, right? So what we have to do is, we have to create the action to perform what kind of action that we need to perform. For instance, let's say if I want to add a new list, that's an action, right? That action needs to be performed in the reducer. So reducer is the guy who performs that action, and that reducer will update the state. Basically, the states are stored in our stores. So these are the three important things that we need to check it out. All right, so don't worry guys, I got you back. Just follow me from here. So what we need to do is go to the actions. All we have to do is to create a new action. So let's say to do actions.js, and inside this to do actions.js, now what we need to do is we need to create two different actions, right? One is to add to the list and another one is to remove from the list. So all I'm going to say is to export const add underscore to underscore list, add to list. That's a function which we are creating, and along with this function I'm going to send the item which I'm going to add it into the list as a parameter. Now I need to return an object. Whenever I'm calling this function, I'm going to return an object. This object is going to take two different elements. One is type, so the type exactly it's going action type. One is that nothing but the action type. The action type is going to be add to list. This is the action that I'm going to instruct to the Redux. This is the action that I'm triggering. Whenever this action is being triggered, so I'm going to send a payload along with this, which is nothing but the item which we get it from the user. Whenever we are calling that function, this function is triggered, you will get the item, and we are sending the item as an object over here. So payload will have an item as an object. All right, so save this. Now just copy this and let's send it. So instead of this add to list, I'm just going to say remove underscore from underscore list, and instead of this item, I'm going to send the ID, right? Just like that. So now we do have two different actions. So we need to perform this action. So under the reducer folders, I'm going to create a new file called to do reducer.js. All right. So let's jump into the to do reducer.js. So all we have to do is to create an initial state. So let's say const initial state. Initially, what exactly the state is going to be. So let's say to do's is the state name, and it's going to be an empty array. That's the initial state interface which we are creating over here. Then const to do reducer, I think so it's better to copy the name, copy paste it here. So const to do reducer, it's going to be an arrow function. Open it, and we're going to export it default. So export default to do reducer, right? So here we're going to send the state. So state is going to be the initial state, and I'm going to send the action as the parameter to this reducer, because we need to figure it out what kind of action it's being triggered, right? So I'm going to say switch, open it, and I'm going to send the action dot type object, because that's the object action which we are getting from here. So I'm going to send the action dot type over here. So if the case is equals to, if the case is add to list, what we have to do, we have to add a new element into an array. The problem is basically it's an array. So you think about it, if you're already having 5 elements inside that array, so what you need to do, you need to extract all the 5 elements. Along with that elements, you need to push the new element into it, right? That's what we need to do over here. So case add to list. So if this is the case, then I'm going to return. So first I need to destructure all the states. So think about it, in a real project, you're not going to have only one state in your Redux store. You might have different states. So I need to update only the state which I want to update. So before updating that, I need to destructure all the available states in the Redux store. So I'm going to destructure all the state objects first. Let's destructure it. Then in that, I'm just going to update this to do's. So to do's colon. Basically to do is an array, right? So first we need to get all the elements which is already inside that array. So let's destructure the state dot to do's. Now we will have all the old elements. Now I need to supply the new element. So basically the new element is going to be an object which is nothing but an ID. So I need to get the state dot to do list dot length. Currently it's 0, so add +1. So if the element, think about it that right now we don't have any element inside that array. So the length will be 0. So I mean trying to insert a first element. So the first element ID should be 1. So length plus 1 will become 0 plus 1, 1. So the first element ID will be 1. So next time when you are inserting, so ID plus the length will become 2. So you will get the ID as the 2. All right. So that's the concept what we are trying to do over here. So next I need to supply the item. So basically the item is going to be nothing but our text. So we are getting that thing from the action, from this payload. With this help of the payload, I'm sending an object, and inside that object I do have an item. All right, something like this. So now we have our case 1, right? So then what we need to do is we need to get the case 2, which is nothing but the remove from the list. Let's add double quotes, question colon. And here I'm going to say return the state, and let's destructure the state completely, comma, and let's open the to do's. So this again, this to do's is exactly the state which we are trying to update. So we need to filter it. So I need to filter the array. So what I'm going to do is inside this remove action, we having the ID. So except that particular ID, I need to fetch everything from that to-do list, right? That's the reason we added the ID over here. So let's go to the state. In the state, I do have the to-dos arrays. I'm going to use the filter method to filter it. Filter, open it. Then I'm going to extract every single to-do from that. And I'm trying to figure out if the to-do.id, which we are having, the to-do.id not equals to, from where? From the action dot payload dot id. So it should not be equals to this id, except that id we are trying to extract and we are pushing it to the to-dos. By that way we can able to remove that element from that id, from that array, right? Save these changes. And finally we need to add the default case. In default, I'm going to return all the state. Save the changes. So now we are done with our reducer part and our action part. So now what I need to do is I need to combine this reducer. In a real-time example, you're not going to have only one reducer. So we are going to work with the multiple reducers. So the best way is to combine the reducers always. So create an index.js file inside your reducer folder and import this from. Basically what we need to do is we need to import a package called combine reducer, which is coming from your Redux. Then I'm just going to say const const root reducers equals to, that's the reducer which I'm creating, that's my main reducer, and I'm going to combine my reducers everything together, open an object. Inside here I'm just going to say to do's colon, and I'm going to say, so here we need to import our reducer, which is nothing but to do reducer. So make sure that is being imported. Then we need to export it. So export default as root reducer, not root reducer. Save these changes. Now we have our reducer actions, reducer. Let me close everything. And let's jump into the store. Now we need to create a store over here. This is the part will becomes really hectic. Okay, this is the place where it's going to be more, a little bit more complex. So what we need to do is let's import the create store from the Redux create store. All right, so now what we need to do is, so I need to create a store over here. That's what we want to do. So I'm just going to say let's store. So all we can say is store equals to create store, open it. Then we need to supply our root reducer over here. So this will help you to create a store, but you can't monitor this store, like what are the state you having inside and what, so like this. So if I click this, you can see these are the states. Currently it's coming from our Next.js applications, right? But you can't see your state which we created. So that means we haven't wrapped it inside the provider. Even though if you're wrapping it inside the provider component, you can't be able to see this. To view this only, we are going to add that particular option which is provided by the React developer tools. So to do that, what we need to do is, so let's go ahead and search for Redux DevTools. Search for Redux DevTools and click this GitHub option. So click this. So over here, if you scroll down, you can able to see how to get that Redux DevTools options and everything. So all you have to do is to click this browser extensions and installations and configurations. Click this, and if you scroll down, you can able to see for different browsers how you can download it and how you can configure it. In this case, if you're using Chrome, click the Chrome Web Store. That will take you to the Chrome Web Store, and please go ahead and download this Redux DevTools. So in case if you're using a Redux 2 and Redux store, and if you have configured it by using this extension monitor, then you can able to access your store through that extension option over here, right? So all we have to do is to copy this line, and you have to paste it right after here. This is the place where we will run into an error. So once I save these changes, and if I export it, export default store, and if I save these changes, so this will throw me an error called window is not defined. So right now it's not showing error because we are not wrapping it inside any of the component, right? So let me show you. So what we have to do is, let's go here and let's go to the layout. So this is the place where we are getting all our child components and everything. So what we have to do is, so in this place only it's loading that page.js, right? Because that's a root file, and that's the place where we are getting the file and everything. So let's open the page. So over here, now what I can't do is I can directly wrap it like over here. I can directly get the provider and I can directly wrap it inside it, but it's not the best practice. So what we can do is, so I'm just going to say const data provider equals to an internal component, open it, and return the provider. So that provider is coming from your Redux, it's a component. And inside here, I'm just going to get the children of, children is nothing but which is coming from your layout. This is the thing, children. Our component is the children. So I'm going to render that, get the children, and I'm going to load the children inside the provider, and that's going to use the store object as the store which we created from our context store. So make sure that is coming from your context store alone. So then I need to wrap this complete stuff inside the data provider which we created. So let's bring this entire division inside in it. So save these changes. Now if you see here, we can able to see that the message is window is not defined, right? So that is happening because of the server side rendering, because so in the server side rendering we will have the window object, so that's the reason it's showing window is not defined. So what we have to do is, so it's a better approach to create a store over here. Copy this completely or cut it. So all I'm going to say, if the type of window object is not equals to undefined, only if it is not equals to undefined, then create it in this way. Otherwise, else create the store but don't use this extension, just like that. Save these changes. So now the error will resolve. But the problem is, again, we will run into another issue, which is nothing but basically this is a runtime error, because we are trying to use the provider object, and as I told you, Next.js will work on both server-side rendering and the client-side rendering, but the Redux store can work only on your client side. So the best option is to use, we can able to use this, the best way is to avoid this error, just adding this single line at the top of it. All you have to do is to copy this and just paste it and make sure this is as a client side option, right? That's the way. Okay, so now if you added it, then click the save option, you will not see that issue anymore. All right, so now if you go here and we can't see this store option what we are creating right now, still we can't see it over here. I will show you why we are not seeing it over here. So what we have to do is, all we have to go to the add to list option. This is the place where we are trying to add it to our list, and this is the place where we are trying to do that. So what I need to do is to dispatch that action. So what I need to do is, all I have to do is to create a dispatch object. Dispatch equals to use dispatch. So using this object, so I'm going to dispatch that object to the to-do list. So let's say dispatch, and I'm going to dispatch the action called add to list. So to this add to list, I need to send the value state. That's the state where we are having the value of this input element, right? Then all I have to do is to, once I pushed it, I need to set the value again as an empty string, right? So save these changes. Okay, so now let me say sample. So whatever I'm typing, it's not getting reflected over here. Okay, so the problem is, it's because it should be wrapped inside set value state function. My bad. Paste it. Now it should work. So let's say if I'm trying to say something else, and if I click this, that action will be triggered, and you can see the state is become empty because of this set value 0. So if you go here, and now you can see the state. Okay, where is our state? I can't able to see the state. Why? Let's refresh it. Store. This is how we created the store. There is no mistakes on that. Store, if the store type of value is undefined, we are creating the stores with the reducer tools. Else, okay, everything is cool. Now let's sing something else. Come on, it's not showing the action. Why it's not showing? Let me stop the server first and let's rerun it. It's taking some time. It's loaded. Let's add something sample. Push it. Open it here. Still it's not showing. Why it's not showing over here? Redux DevTools. Is there any mistake? Window object. Nope. Type of the window, it's not equals to undefined. Store, create store with the root reducers. Oh, my bad. All we have to do is to choose your state manager, your data provider. Choose the to-do list and now go to the state. There you can able to see the states. Inside the states you can see we have our sample option, right? It's my bad. When I click the refreshed option, you can see that is completely collapsed and it's showing the next router. So all you have to do is to change the next router into to-do list. That's our data provider. Inside that data provider, we have the to-do array, and currently the to-do array is completely empty. And now if I type something and if I pushing it, if I click this, and there we can able to see the to-do list is completely working fine. And inside that array, we have our new element. And if I'm trying to push one more, and now you can able to see inside that array we have two different elements, right? Sample and new element. Now all we have to do is to bring that elements and load it in over here, right? That's what we need to do. So let's go to the to-do list. This is the place where we are rendering all the list elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the to-do elements from the state. So const to-dos equals to use selector hook. Using this hook, use selector hook, we can get the state object completely, and we can extract only the elements only the states which we wanted. To-dos, I need the to-dos. Inside the to-dos, I have the to-dos array. So question mark dot to-dos. So you might wonder why the reason I have the to-dos inside of to-dos. That's because of the combined reducers, where the place where we are combining it. So because inside the reducer, we already created the states called to-dos. And at the point when you are trying to combine it over here, where we are combining it in the index.js, again, we are creating a new element called to-dos colon to-do reducer, right? That's the reason it's happening like that. All right. So all we have to do is to get back to the to-dos. Now we have the to-do states over here. So what I'm going to do is, currently you can see it's showing only one. And if I go and check the to-do list option, still inside the to-dos, I have two different elements over there. So what I need to do is over here, I'm going to bring the animate presence object, which is coming from our motion part, because this animate presence makes sure all the animations is working properly, including the exit animations and everything. So inside this to-do list, what I need to do is, so I'm going to check if the to-dos dot length, length dot length, if it is greater than 0, then I need to display something. Or else we need to display something. So if it is greater than 0, that means we have something to display. If it is not greater than 0, I'm going to bring a paragraph tag, and I'm just going to say no active activities, something like that. If not, I'm going to open this React fragments. If I have something inside, then I'm going to say to-dos dot map, open it. Then I'm going to get the item from it. Then I'm going to render it with this list element. So inside the item, we have the ID. So I'm going to supply it to the key, and I'm going to supply that same thing to the index also, item.id. And this value is going to be our item.item. Right? So now this will renders the elements over here, save these changes, and now you should be able to see the sample and push one more object, and you can able to see that animation option is also it's working perfectly. And now if I'm trying to push one more again, if I click this, that will be added to the list, and you can see that animation is working perfectly because of this animate presence. All right. So now what I need to do is, you can see that the newly created list should come to the top of the list, right? So to get that animation to the top of the list, all you have to do is to sort the array list. So what I need to do is, so how to sort that option? So basically what we are going to do is, we're going to slice this array. And we are going to do the comparison by using the sort method. So we are going to get the basically sort method needs these elements, these inputs, like it has these objects -1, 1 and 0. So basically -1 in the sort function represents less than, and this is greater than, and at the end 0 it's going to be equal to. That's what it's representing inside the sort function. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try get the first and second index ID, and I'm going to try to subtract it. If I'm getting -1, that means it's less than, so I can swap it. If I'm getting the greater than, it will arrange the values according to the value whatever it's getting over here. So what we need to do is, so here all we have to say is use the method called .slice. So to do question mark .slice, open the method, and that will gives you the exact replica of this array. So basically what exactly the slice method will gives you, the slice method creates the shallow copy of the to-dos array. So this will create a shallow copy of this to-do array. Then after this copy, I'm going to use this sort method, sort. So inside this sort method, how we can able to perform this sort, you can see how we can compare the two different numbers. You can see this gives the complete explanation over here. Get the first and second element and try to do the subtraction option, and then figure it out what object you are getting. Then according to that, it will sort the elements and everything, right? Whenever the function is used to sort the array based on the array elements which we are supplying into it, so it's trying to perform the comparison options, right? So over here, all it's saying like a comma b is equal to a minus b, right? So it try to figure it out which element is bigger and smaller or equals to. So according to that only, it's performing the action. So think about it. You are trying to compare two elements a and b based on the property id properties in this case, right? So if I'm reducing the b id from a id, so if I'm getting the result of subtraction as a negative, that means b is less than a. If I'm getting the positive, that means b is greater than a. If I'm getting the result as 0, that means b and a are equal. So using that, I'm gonna arrange it. So here I'm going to say a and b, create a callback function. So b dot id minus a dot id. We are trying to do the minus option, subtraction over here. So if I'm getting the negative result, that means b is less than a. If I'm getting the positive number, that means b is greater than a. If I'm getting 0, that means both are equal, right? So now this will sort that complete array, right? This will sort the complete array, and that will give a new array, and then we are mapping it. So save these changes. Now you should see the newly created element is pushed to the top, and the first created element is pushed to the bottom, right? So here all we have to do is to say, let's say have something fun. Let's create it, and that it's been added to the top of the list. Cool, right? Now we need to add the remove from the list also. So to add an option to remove from the list, all we have to do, the place, go to the over here, and this is the to-do list and list card. Inside the list card, we have this delete option. This is the place where we are trying to delete it, right? So for this, I'm gonna say on click event, call a callback function, and we need to get the dispatch object, right? So to get the dispatch object, all we have to do is to go here, copy this, and paste it right after here, and import that use dispatch hook. So now we have our dispatch object over here. So all we have to say is dispatch remove from the list, and I need to send the ID, right? So basically we are getting the ID inside the index object. So send the index object in it, save it, and now if I click this option, let's say if I click this, that should be deleted from there, and you can see it's deleting that particular element. Click it, and finally you can able to see that we don't have any activities over there, and the complete state over here, it's empty. You can see we performed the remove from the list, right? So if you have any questions regarding this, any part of this video, if you don't understand it, so drop the question in the comment section. I will definitely help you out. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.